We are indeed going to welcome the wonderful Chrissie Hanson.
Hi.
Of OMD. Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm always amazed when tech works. I think we're doing well already, hey?
Well, the Media Ocean Beat TV Leadership Summit is being led by tech heroes. So they've done a great job. So Chrissie, how are you? Welcome.
You know, I'm good. How are you doing? I think you seem to be running a fantastic session.
Do you know, I've enjoyed it enormously. We're blessed by the quality of the contributors and participants and by a great team, so it's all been good. So Chrissie, we are here to talk about attention, which is everybody's favourite topic at the moment.
Yep.
Tell us why there's so much buzz about attention at this point in time, in your view?
So I think there are sort of two reasons why we're all talking about it, right? The first is it's finite. And the second is we figured out how valuable it really is when it comes to achieving better brand and business growth. And so unsurprisingly, we all want more of it. But the thing is, right, attention is not a new word, right? I'm a logophile, I'm a lover of words, right? And if you delve into that word, it first appeared in kind of old English manuscripts of Chaucer. So I don't know if you're thinking of Canterbury Tales, but I certainly am, sort of GCSE lessons. But look, it has had waves of interest over the years. It's been dissected by philosophers, writers, psychologists. There's the kind of more recent literature from the 1950s, right? And that's all like cognitive psychology. And then you get kind of the neuroscience and machine learning folks kind of piling in. I think the sort of the why now, right? The what's different now, and therefore some of the buzz, right? You've got third-party cookie deprecation. You have a clamoring for greater consumer privacy. You have that compounded by the demands of digital transformation. And our industry wants, frankly, better metrics. And at the same time, right, you have technology that affords us the ability to capture real human attention, right, at a really granular level. So you don't have to just simulate it anymore. You don't have to rely on a proxy, kind of proxy data points. You and I could actually figure out if someone was looking at us, right? If they were looking directly at us, or if they were looking around us, like imagine we were ads, right? And therefore, can you optimize? How can you plan against that so that you're giving your clients much more kind of meaningful transparency in the metrics? And then in terms of the buzz, I think the excitement and the energy around attention is because there is evidence that it works. There is evidence that attention matters to achieving those better outcomes. And one of those pieces of research is around that relationship between attention and mental availability, which I think we all know is an indicator of kind of brand strength. So there's kind of a lot there, but hopefully that kind of gives a good level set for the group.
So you mentioned outcomes there, and I guess that's one question that lurks in the back of my mind. Yeah. If I'm an advertiser, why should I care about attention versus other metrics? Obviously, you could argue we're hearing a lot of about effectiveness measurement and attribution. If I can attribute value precisely to my ad spend, why do I need attention as well?
Okay. So I think there's a concept that many marketers are really comfortable with, which is this idea of mental availability and physical availability, right? And mental availability has generally been understood as being an indicator of market share. That relationship has been proven, right? So if you say your mental availability goes up, right, your market share is also related to that. So that goes up as well. The reason attention is important is that link has been shown now. That relationship between an attention uplift and mental availability uplift, right, is there. So if you drive one, you do drive the other. What is also interesting today is that we know, right, that there are certain platforms that achieve higher levels of attention, which means they make a greater contribution to your mental availability score. And I think that is really significant as to why attention it's a yes and, right? You should yes, it's important and you should be doing it.
And you're talking about neuroscience findings there. You're talking about real state-of-the-art neuroscience that allows us to relate these things.
I'm talking about gaze models as well, eye tracking, right? And then prompted in-store experience results. So you're exposed to the advertising, then you're asked, okay, what am I likely to choose? So I think that work, which we've done across a number of sort of CPG advertisers, has been incredibly helpful, because you've seen when the relationships work, and then you've seen when you kind of have a double jeopardy effect when something hasn't worked, and you go, well, why is that? And there are some very interesting kind of creative findings that are linked to that as well. So it's significant. I mean, it's there. It does drive outcomes.
So measurement is everybody's favorite topic, and certainly one of mine. Technically, how do we measure attention systematically?
Yeah. Okay.
What are the units?
Okay, so there are broadly, right, there are 3 ways in which you can measure attention. So the first is around sort of your tag-based providers, right? So what they will do is, it's kind of a JavaScript, you know, you're sort of tagging that to the kind of creative, you're understanding the environment in which the ad was displayed, and then you're kind of estimating what's that received attention. You then have, there's a second type, which is kind of, I mentioned before, so eye tracking, so that's gaze models. Sometimes there's also monitoring their head, and then based on the size of the screen, you then go, okay, well, the eyes are here and the head's here, so we're gonna kind of make some assumptions there. But with eye tracking, you have basically a camera, right, on a mobile phone, and that can, you know, look at your kind of webcam or your laptop or some other device, and that's capturing the user and their exposure to kind of an ad or content. And then you've got physical responses, right? So that's where you might use a headset. There's some kind of skin response device, right? So you're measuring how a user is interacting when they're exposed to an ad or a piece of content. And so the kind of the units, right, that you're selling and therefore buying, you can cluster them into the kind of groups by which you measure. So if you're tag-based providers, that kind of first group, you're probably looking at an attention unit, right? So that for them, it's probably some kind of score, right, where there's a kind of a behavioral, attitudinal kind of conversion data, maybe some in-view duration, ad clutter, and you're using that to kind of guide what's the site, what's the format, what am I buying, right? What's the kind of particular piece of content, why? The sort of, sometimes the challenge there is just how old is that data, right? So because when you're doing the calculations off that, you've got to make sure that the seed of it is fresh. The second one, the unit, you're probably looking at attentive CPMs, right, or attention adjusted CPMs. You know, I do like that use of human attention data. That is probably my preferred one, because there's a granularity, I think, that gets you to, I can see if your eye is on something, I can see if it's around something or if it's not there at all. And then we kind of delve a bit more into the why. So is that because of the speed at which you're scrolling? Is that because of the clutter? And then, you know, if you're kind of in sort of level 3, then you're looking at kind of responses to ads. Well, then they're a little bit more around, the types of responses that you're having to drive creative insights. So there may be some heat mapping that's going on there as well. So
putting it all together,
yes,
how does attention really work as a metric? You know, is high attention advertising always better than low attention advertising, or is it just interruptive and irritating? What does the attention ceiling look like? What is an attention frequency curve?
Yeah. So you've asked a few questions there, so I'm going to unpack them. Okay. So I would say, so firstly, if you think about attention as it's a performance indicator that can connect strategic planning into buying, into investment to achieve your kind of outcomes. You then have to look at how are you quantifying, how you're going to optimize and sort of productize attention across the different disciplines. And this is where, right, to answer your question about is it high, is it low, and what are the ceilings, I would actually first pull you back and say, what is the client problem you're solving for, right? Because what is it that attention is seeking to do? Because it dictates, where am I entering my journey? Am I starting attention from a strategic perspective? So like, am I trying to understand source of growth, who's relevant, who's in my world, what's my barrier? And therefore, how much attention do I want from you? Do I need a nudge? Is that all I need from you? Because I know you really well and I'm thirsty, I just need a drink. And it's like, I don't need a great big long piece of mental availability building communications. Or conversely, am I new into a category, right? Have I just, I don't know, I've been just diagnosed with tennis elbow. I've got something, you know, that I kind of need a little bit more explanation, right? And so I need a format, I need a canvas, which gives me 3.5, 4 seconds minimum. So I need higher levels of attention. So that's where the kind of the granularity comes in, and being really rigorous about what is it that a client wants, because then I can better guide in terms of how do we manage that metric in the right way, whether I'm strategy, whether I'm in activation, or whether I'm in kind of investments, so kind of performance commitments.
And I can really see, listening to you talk, how this is, I assume, adding a really interesting extra dimension to your strategy and planning work with your clients.
Yes. I mean, it's an extra layer, and it's also being woven into frankly, the DNA of the way we work, right? So, you know, we make a real effort to make sure that the work we do is deeply collaborative. So increasingly, when we do our trainings, we won't hold them unless we have strategy person in the room, activation, and investment, because it's really important that all three representatives have a voice, but also see where something is going, right? So that they can go, okay, this is how we're going to apply it, or hey, here is the watch out. So it is an additional layer, but it's becoming an intrinsic part of what we do, and it's making it smarter, and it's better, and, you know, frankly, a lot more enjoyable, right? And that gets back to the meaning of our industry.
Right. Well, a related question, I guess, when you think about the brands you work with across presumably multiple categories, is attention for everyone? I mean, are there some brands for whom attention is kind of interesting, but don't worry too much, whereas there are others for whom it has to be front and central to their strategic thinking?
Yeah, so I would say, look, I'll give you my philosophical answer and my practical one. I can't imagine there isn't a single brand that doesn't want your attention, right? Your ability to focus, your earnest direction of the mind on you, right? I mean, even if I were to ask my 7-year-old daughter, and I did actually ask her, I was like, define attention for me, right? And she said, and it was a very lovely explanation. She said, you know, Mummy, it is, you look at someone when they speak to you, because if you don't, you're rude. And I was like, you know what? There is a parallel there between what we hope consumers do for the messaging that we deliver for them. And if we do it well, we've done our jobs, right, effectively. And so why wouldn't you want to? I think the question under the sort of the click down is, there may be something that is even more pressing for you, and perhaps we haven't articulated effectively how attention answers that. So perhaps that job needs to be better done by us, to go, okay, let me hear you, let me really understand what your need is, and how can we then show where attention answers that, right? And it's a journey, right? Because it's kind of a lot of education, and a lot of you know, what does this really mean for me, right? And it isn't enough to do, I don't believe, one meeting with a CMO or a CEO. It's right the way through, so everyone goes, am I on board with what this means? And how can it inform more responsible, more ethical, more you know, more effective decisioning?
So I'm guessing as well that consumer insight must run through the core of this new attention economy, in that we as consumers, when we think about our own experience, we are more receptive, more attentive to certain types of messaging at certain moments. If I'm starting to think about a particular type of purchase, there's a moment when I want to grab my attention. There are other moments when it's just not relevant. Yes,
completely right. And I think this is what I love about attention, is that it returns your focus, your assessment of metrics, your guidance, it right back to the audience, right back to the consumer. And it kind of comes back to, I suppose it's like your first principles and your rigor. It's okay, what is, for example, what's my golden hour of attention, right? When am I most ready for you? Because that's quite different if I'm one category versus another one. And also, have you understood me and how my life has changed over the last year and a half, right? So, you know, my answer is my golden hour of attention has become earlier and earlier, right? But that's not the same if you're a teenager, or if you're, you know, my mother, for example. So understanding that, and You know, it's rigor, it's good old-fashioned planning, but with a definite update, right? That goes, we have so many factors to kind of consider, but you know what? Attention is an incredibly smart way of refocusing on what truly matters, and then doing that in a really thoughtful way, because this is not about attention harvesting. This is not about sucking as much as you possibly can. It's actually being really respectful and saying, we only need this much for this task, for where you are in the journey, and then showing how when we do that, we not only have smarter, stronger results, right? Whether it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, you know, percentage improvements, right, in terms of, right, the efficiency of a campaign, but it's also saying, how do I build honestly a net positive attention ecosystem? And that takes everyone.
A lot of this attention economy, my sense from our conversation at least, is that it's being driven by the buy side. And we've seen some really interesting investments and innovations across the different agency groups, obviously including OMD. What does it mean for media owners? You know, if I'm a major TV network or a streaming service that's trying to grow my ad revenues, what does this shift towards attention really mean? Yeah,
look, I think if you're quality programming on television, you're going to have a great time from this, right? Because, you know, when I read stats about, you know, attention has dwindled from 12 to 10 to 8, I sort of smile, because there's this great Jerry Seinfeld quote where he goes, there's no such thing as an attention span, it's just the quality of your content, right? And so if you understand the kind of the higher levels of human attention that your content is getting, hey, that's great, right? So I think for all media owners and platforms and vendors and so on and so forth, the sooner, and some of them are, right? Some of them really are, but the sooner they get really comfortable with that data and then speak the same language that we're hoping that they'll speak, then it allows us to say, okay, great, you get it, right? You know what we're seeking to do, and then we can start to have more joint pieces of research that look at, you know, answering the questions that our clients are asking, right? Whereas, for example, what is the impact of cultural moments on high levels of attention, right? You know, the kind of session before was around, or one of the comments made was around Super Bowl. There's the Super Bowl, there's, you know, Double 11, right? There's Amazon Prime Day and so on and so forth. Those are all potential cultural moments. And if you can show the greater levels of attention around that, fantastic, right? That is music to my ears.
So summing it all up, let's fast forward and assume it's 2025 and attention has really taken off as a metric. It's shaped the way that brands think about media and about their engagements with customers and prospects and audiences. What, if attention really delivers on the promise you're talking about, what looks most different 5 years from now, 3 years from now?
I think I hope if we do this well, what looks most different is that we see less need for ad blockers and really poor performance scores, right? Because then you are enjoying the advertising, right? We got it right in terms of crafting the experiences that people cared about. And, you know, not only that, but you also have a safer ecosystem, right? An ecosystem that understood what it meant to be responsible and more ethical and fairer. So it's enjoyable, but also it's a like I said it before, it's a net positive attention ecosystem. Like, I got into this industry because I genuinely believe in the power of brands to do good things in the world. And maybe that was naive 21 years ago. But I think we're getting there. I do think that this is an opportunity for us to really, you know, correct a course. And I think if we can do that, then perhaps we can kind of pull our talent back in as well. So.
Chrissie, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation. I'm really looking forward. Chrissie had agreed to do a longer version of this conversation with me at some point. So watch this space. We'll be publicizing it in Beat World because it's a topic I could talk to you about for hours. Thank you so much for sharing some thoughts with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the invitation, everyone. Thank you. Take care. Bye.